Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Situation Room. We'll be talking about India's false flag operation and of course Pakistan's, the way that we've laid out the proofs of all that has transpired from the Indian side, the propaganda that is being put forward in front of the international media. We'll be talking about that, the fact that the Deputy PM has called for and asked the envoy, the permanent representative at UN, to call for the earliest UN meeting so that we can put forward Pakistan's case for India perpetrating terrorism in Pakistan. All of that today. I have with me Saima Shabir, who's a senior journalist. Thank you so much for being with us today. We also have with us Abid Abbasi, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for joining us today. We have been joined by Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us today. And Dr. Maria Sultan, who's a defense analyst. Thank you for joining us. Let me go to Ambassador and then I'll come back to the studio. Ambassador, we know that the Deputy PM, Dar Saab, has called the UN permanent representative at the UN and asked him to ask for the earliest meeting as far as the UN is concerned so that Pakistan can put forward our case for India's perpetration of terrorism in the region, for them, the constant interference that we have seen coming from that side, which has resulted in this false flag operation more recently. And of course, there's a plethora of evidence and cases in point if we look back. How do you see this new move by Pakistan? Ambassador, can you hear me? Jamil Saab? I think there's a problem with audio. Dr. Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am.
Dr. Maria, I'm talking about this latest move that as you know, Dar Saab has asked the permanent representative of the UN to call for an earliest meeting of the United Nations to discuss India's perpetration of terrorism that we've seen, the constant interference, the constant involvement in terrorism that has been going on for decades now. How do you see this recent move in the light of the Pahalgam incident, of course?
I think this is a step in the right direction because it is for the first time putting the record for what it is. That is that Pakistan has been the country which has been suffering at the hands of Indian terrorism. We are the ones who have been subject to different acts of terrorism. And we are the ones who have got dead bodies of terrorists. We are the ones who have managed to stop almost 71 plus terrorist attacks which have happened on us in these last 2 weeks alone. So I think it's extremely important that we have insurmountable evidence which indicates not only India's direct involvement, but also the fact that they have been aiding, abetting, and financing terrorism. And as for the UN Security Council is concerned, it is well within their rights that not only they hold states accountable when it comes to state-based terrorism, but also the fact that we merit this case on two accounts. One, on the account of UN Security Council Resolution 1373, which stops the states from carrying out acts of terrorism, and other with regards to the UN Charter, which says that if there is threat to international peace and security, then the UN Security Council must be activated. And I think there can be no bigger threat to international peace and security where one country has leveled false allegations against us, and now both countries are standing eyeball to eyeball with the permanent threat of a nuclear escalation ever present. So it merits both cases, and last but not least, also on the account of the fact that the Indians have been involved since 5th of August 2019 in unilaterally trying to change the status of the Kashmir dispute, and in particular of the Kashmiris which were in Indian-held Kashmir. So in that account also, under Chapter 1, to protect the right of self-determination of the Kashmiris, it all necessitates a direct action from the UN Security Council. And UN Security Council must be activated on all these three accounts.
Fair enough. Let me go to Dr. Jamil and I'll come back to you. Dr. Jamil, this is of course part of the kind of proactive diplomacy that we want to put forward. And for a while, of course, if you look at the past, there is certainly on India's side, there is a host of cases, and we've seen it's not just limited to our region, but it's all over, the kind of interference that comes from the Indian side, the kind of terrorism that flows from there. So do you think that this kind of proactive diplomacy is now the need of the hour, and that now we need to move forward and become more aggressive with this kind of proactive diplomacy?
No, indeed, you very well said that more aggressive. In fact, we have already done quite appropriately post-incident once we were alleged about this Pahalgam incident. But referring to the Security Council meeting, which the Prime Minister has asked, which our permanent representative is asked to really approach the council and have the meeting convened at the earlier stage. In fact, the president of Security Council has already mentioned that the situation warrants emergency meeting of the Security Council because a lot is at the stake. These are the words, quote unquote. So therefore, I expect, yes, that the Security Council session would be called, I think in the shortest possible time, in coming few hours, if not days. So that the entire situation, the way the tension is building up, and
There is also, Dr. Jamil, there's also, how do you see us putting forward our case at this time? And, also one has to acknowledge that, of course, we want to, having this kind of proactive diplomacy is the need of the hour. But nevertheless, one has to acknowledge that there is a failure of institutions all over to, like the UN, to establish or, actually work for peace and call out those who are responsible for this kind of terrorism. We've seen that in Israel also. So unfortunately, one has to acknowledge that there are some limitations there also.
Basically, the UN works in a different tier. One is the secretariat side, which is working very well. The second one is the political side, that is the Security Council, under which all the decisions are taken, and through resolution, chapter 6 and chapter 7, most of it, chapter 5, they pass the resolution and they accordingly do the implementation. We're talking about that Palestine, yes, Palestine, because as I said, it's quite political component or the organ of the United Nations. Therefore, that is politicized. For example, in the case of Palestine, if there is anything in favor of Palestinians, it is vetoed by the United States. In case of Kashmir, again, if anything is brought under Chapter 7, and Dr. Maria was also mentioning about the Security Council and the nature of the situation is such that the Security Council meeting should be called. Security Council has a very clear limitations and limits about calling the session and about taking the measure. The very first chapter of the United Nations Charter, it mentions about the peace and of the entire world, of all the member countries, among all the member countries. And they have further mentioned it in Article 36 and Article 33 of the United Nations Charter, that in such situation, the investigation could be ordered, and both parties are obliged to really settle the dispute in view of the Security Council resolution. And if they don't agree to it, then there are other articles 40, 41, 42, where the implementing tools are available. So yes, that is one. But then referring back to your answer, which partially I've already responded to, that the United Nations as a whole, and I think it won't be, I will not be able to do justice if we say as a whole, because the United Nations Secretariat is quite functional, because it's non-political, it's a bureaucratic organ of the United Nations, but the political organ is definitely infected. The Kashmir resolution, the several Kashmir resolution, including resolution number 47, has never been implemented, and the United Nations do not go for Chapter 7 which is the implementing part of the United Nations Charter. So if they had gone for it, I guess. But in this case, once Pakistan has asked, in fact, the president of the Security Council has himself been very cognizant, and he has mentioned, as I was indicating. So I'm expecting that, and this time they'll have to really take some decision, because if they don't do that, there are always a fear of accidental flashpoint in between any country, a nuclear country in particular. So that is quite detrimental
It's a very
for
apt
the entire world.
point that you're making. Let me come back to you on that. Simon, do you agree? Of course, you know, in the sense that this is, of course, a nuclear flashpoint, and of course the world is watching. We've had the US also, and numerous other states say that, you know, there needs to be caution as far as this kind of terrorism is concerned that comes from the Indian side. And then, of course, the potential for escalation is always there. Do you think that the United Nations, like Ambassador Saab is saying, will be cognizant of this?
Well, thank you very much, Manu. But what I feel like that now world has to act in a very responsible manner, because as you have already stated out, that being a nuclear state from both sides, it's not really very easy, and it's not very conducive to have a conventional warfare. And I don't think so that conventional warfare is an answer to any of the states' question, either it is India or from Pakistani sides. So what we see as journalists, we are hoping that Pakistan should use all the platforms, all the stakeholders, just like as Pakistan has very wisely taking up this case into the United Nations Security Council, getting benefit out of it, that Pakistan is a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council right now. So I think this is a very, very wise step from Pakistani side that it is going to take it up its case over there, and it is going to fight there. And it is a very important, I think, method to grab the attention of international media, international community, international political parties from across the globe. And now, after this situation, which is evolving on every single day, what we are observing that not only, as Pakistan was stating, that after the blame game from Indian side, Pakistan has all the options. It is carrying in hand that it may go into the United Nations Security Council, it may go to the ICJ, it may use all the platforms. I think this is a very wise step that Pakistan should go. And what United Nations is going to do, I think this is also non-political and political variation.
I want to come to that, of course, because we've seen that India use its potential clout, and the fact that, you know, it's
right now what we are seeing as international observer through the media, through the lens of media, what we are observing and seeing that right now Pakistan is playing very well for its dignity, its sovereignty, and it's playing its case very well. If you can see that the hostile media and hostile political parties and their statements from the Indian side, it is quite very much aggressive. But this time, it is the first time that Pakistani media was being involved, Pakistani media was being carried out all the things which were very necessary to combat that kind of fifth generation warfare. And I think this is a win-win situation right now for Pakistan. Pakistan and India both knows that they cannot go for a war as being nuclear power, and it may engulf the whole region into this war. Due to many previous incidents like Pulwama, Uri and other terrorist attacks, which usually India used to do, that they were putting the blame on Pakistan, and outrightly they were into the blame game just to push the blame on Pakistani side. I think this time world did not take it very seriously in the initial time, but when Pakistan started showing the world the true picture, so then United States, United Nations, United States, UK and other countries, they have also taken it very seriously. They have taken up the case of India and Pakistan both, because earlier they were saying, as you might have seen the statement from the US President earlier statement that he was saying that this is, you know, a very normal thing that Pakistan and India may have in the clashes. But now the whole world is taking it very seriously, and I think this is the right point, very right time to take up our case, to take up Pakistan's case into the not only in United Nations but all other platforms also to use that.
Let me come back
Yeah,
to
sure.
that. I will let me go to Abid Sahab also. Abid Sahab, in terms of proactive diplomacy, like Saima is saying, we've also seen India again using its clout, of course, you know, as a permanent member, he's you know, and the fact that they're also their potential market, all of those advantages to exploit it, their, you know, exploit their narrative, which is, you know, obviously the flaws in it are more apparent. And like Saima said, you know, perhaps, but this time, do you think that the world is taking a step back, the international media, the press is taking a step back and asking the right questions?
Thank you very much, Mahrukh. Yes, you have said very rightly, and Saima has mentioned in a, you know, detailed manner, that this is not a conventional warfare between India and Pakistan. 150, you know, 1.5 billion people are at the direct risk of the nuclear war, and rest of the world would also face the music if such kind of, God forbid, you know, actions would take place. So, the way the Pakistani government and the Pakistan has responded to that allegations which was directly put on them just in a few minutes after the incident, that sad incident took place, I must say. But the way the Prime Minister of Pakistan has responded, Pakistan as a country has responded, that we are very much ready to take part into any independent inquiry of the matter. That is actually very crucial, very pertinent, and very sort of, you know, bold step taken by Pakistan. Because if there is an iota of doubt in the minds of Pakistani authorities, they would never, you know, offer the world. In fact, they have offered this, you know, to the world, that if any independent, you know, sort of inquiry is being carried out, Pakistan is very much ready to, you know, take part in that inquiry. So after that, and then we have seen many measures taken by Pakistan, as your guest has already mentioned, Ambassador Saab and Dr. Maria and then Saima, that Pakistan is exhorting many sort of, you know, steps to convince the world that it is not a joke. 1.5 billion earlier, as I said, people, their life is at the stake, and both the countries are suffering a lot of, you know, problems in them. And at this time, the world would also be victim of any sort of, God forbid, escalation taking place from Indian side. Just after a few minutes of the incident, they have taken, it seems that they were very much convinced, very much ready to get their other objectives while in the prism of that incident. For instance, they have just put in abeyance the Indus Basin Water Treaty, and, you know, just try to put pressure on Pakistan, because everybody knows that, you know, a huge population of Pakistan, 250 million, out of them a very, you know, hefty average of the people is dependent directly on the water or for their agriculture activities, for their livelihood. So India has taken these steps, putting blame in Pakistan in a very, it's a very traditional kind of, you know, their expression against Pakistan. But on the other hand, Pakistan has very solid proofs of involvement of India, particularly Ra in Balochistan, in many other areas. We have a very solid evidence. Kulbhushan Yadav was serving, you know, army officer of Indian armed forces. He is still in the custody, and he was caught red-handedly. And so many other sort of proofs Pakistan has. If we talk about Kashmir, the India has in the bright daylight, they have, you know, taken back the special status of Kashmir was taken off. And I think the world is watching it, and the way the Pakistan is responsibly behaving. And despite the fact that Pakistan has every sort of, you know, capability to respond, but Pakistan is always saying this thing, that they will never go for any sort of escalation, war escalation. But if a war is imposed in Pakistan, that would be respondent for the protection of their 250 million people.
Let me come back to you. Let me go to Dr. Maria. Dr. Maria, do you see, you know, overall that the propaganda that's coming from the Indian side, Yet there is an inability on their part to shape the world opinion according to, what suits them, because at this time the way things are, like I said, the world and the media, international media, is asking the right questions. Their own opposition parties, their own citizens are asking pertinent questions about this incident, and the fact that, where is the proof, and how is there, how is the inquiry concluded, and how has the FIR been registered within 20 minutes, all of those things, and the fact that there hasn't been an adequate response to Pakistan's offer of an inquiry.
Well, I think India is dealing with multiple issues here. First issue has been the fact that their internal politics has overridden their foreign policy objectives. And with these foreign policy objectives have also come with the hidden package of their military aims and objectives, which of course are now shortlisted because of three reasons. One, there have been news reports. It's not just about the international media asking the right questions or us asking the right questions. I just saw a report on France 24 where they had, looked at all the reports which were being shared on the Indian television and basically stated that actually 80% of the images were AI generated, including the couple who was shown as being affected and killed in the process was pretty much alive. So when you have alive people on which, you're showing images to gain sympathy, so it just shows that actually the truth is far from what is being projected. One. Number two, the Indian government wanted to project this as a counterterrorism case. But we all know that the Kashmir dispute is not a terrorism issue. It is an issue in which it was an unfinished part of partition. It is something on which the right of the self-determination was put on hold. And under Chapter 1, the right of the self-determination of the people is protected militarily, economically, and politically. So this basically means that you cannot rewrite international rules just because you have got an information body or you've got a set of media which is going to lie, cheat, and deceive not only their own people but also international community. And the reality is this: that the international community is not going to fall for it, and they didn't fall for it. That's where the questions are being raised. Now, that said, the second issue was that while they were trying to project this as a counterterrorism issue, the aim was that they will have some kind of a limited strike against Pakistan and have some limited escalation and then have dividends in the internal politics, have dividends in international security, and have dividends in regional security. Forgetting that the India has the right to initiate war, but India does not have the right to control the war. And that's what happened in Pulwama, and that's what is going to happen now. And then they made the wrong mistake in which, we saw some American, strategists talking about the fact that they would be stopping of waters, and then, they went on saying that they will do that. So meaning what? Meaning this, that actually India is an unreliable international partner which can't even stand to an international treaty guaranteed by World Bank. It means that they have no concern whatsoever for the rest of India because war is not something you can contain in limited battlefields. Once it starts, it starts. And then it's full spectrum. It basically means that it will cover all azimuths. It means it will cover all threats, and it also means that it will cover all response options. So this basically means that they put 1.2 billion people's life at stake to a risk of a nuclear conflict just because they wanted to have a limited victory over Pakistan in a political scenario based on allegedly, an incident which is now doubtful in the manner in which actually it happened. So therefore, they're not able to provide any credible evidence. They're not even able to provide any dead bodies in that case. They're not even able to, go back to those people who have been affected and killed in this unfortunate incident and actually claim some sympathy from them. Those very people, those people who got affected in this terrorist incident are also asking big questions from their government. They're saying, where was the rescue office? Where were the people? Where was the response option? Why is it that there was more than so many, there was like 5 kilometers away, there was one post, another kilometer, 7 kilometers away, there was yet another post, and nobody came to the help of these people according to them, and apparently the firing went on for more than half an hour. The reports were done in less than 10 minutes. So there are lots of gaps, and these gaps have been picked up.
Like you said, I think it's very important that there are lots of gaps in the narrative itself that is being put forward by India. Dr. Jamil, Also, the Iranian foreign minister is expected in Pakistan tomorrow. Do you think there's going to be, as far as diplomacy is concerned, as far as a role they can play in this kind of a bizarre, narrative that is being put forward by India, the false flag operation? How do you see this visit at this time?
Well, in all such situations, the multi-layered and multilateral diplomacy, it always helps. And even Iran in this case is quite an important country because Iran has its good relations with India, and Iran has relations with Pakistan. And in this situation, once they are stepping in, obviously Iran would offer, as they have already offered, to mediate. Saudi Arabia has already offered to mediate. Switzerland has already said they would be very happy to be part of the investigation, Switzerland being a neutral country. And all these countries, even Russians, have asked that the matter should be resolved in the light of agreement, Simla agreement, which we might as well not really stay in Simla agreement after what India has done with the Indus Water Treaty. And we have already mentioned it. Our leadership has mentioned it, that we'll consider staying in the other agreements which we have with India. So the referring back to your question and its responses, that as many countries, the Prime Minister has spoken in with several countries. Mike Rubio has also spoken with Prime Minister. So all these things, definitely, it helps in two ways. One is that while we go to the General Assembly or Security Council or any other international platform, all these countries to whom we contact and our outreach to these countries, it definitely helps because we are in a position to, in that case, we are in a position once we outreach these countries, we explain to them the way we are discussing here, the way we are debating here about the ground realities, and we can enumerate it anytime. We have been discussing it, that within about a few minutes' time, they launched the first information report, the police report, and then each inch of the occupied Kashmir is under the surveillance of 900,000 troops there. So it does not stand to logic to any sane person that, under those situations, people can go, operate, kill, stay, carry out the operation for over half an hour, and then quietly come back, and yet there is no one caught so far, and there is no evidence, and the world is waiting for that evidence, and that's why my skepticism is that India would try its best to avoid the investigation by the international entities or by the third party, because India knows that in that case things would be in a black and white, and it would be very hard for India to maintain its situation. But then one has to reason out, one has to really think beyond these discussions, that there has to be some reason that India staged all these false flag operations. And the answer is that it's not the first time. The Chhattispura, with once they killed about 38 Sikhs, and that is mentioned in the Madeleine book, and even Clinton in preface has mentioned about it. And there, in every time, 2016, 2018, 2021, once Blinken was there, 2018, once Mike Pompeo was there, and then Pulwama, and now. So all this, these incidents are the demonstration of what mindset India has. But India this time has, last time during Pulwama, they were able to have those points incorporated in the Security Council statement and the resolution. This time, even Security Council did not really incorporate those points which India wanted to, indicating or alleging Pakistan. So this time, they are at a very big disadvantage. But then there has to be some logic, as I was saying. Then the logic is, which has been proven by their own opposition leader on the the television, on the live show of the television, in which one of their opposition leader was saying that, look, this is a video where Modi is asking for the votes, giving example of Pahalgam in Bihar. So basically what is happening in India now, and I really feel that the Indian population, I sympathize with the saner element, I sympathize with those people, and most of them are secular people, most of them are peace-loving people. It's not the BJP mindset which the entire
But it
population
seems like
has.
BJP, and of course Modi seems to have thrown India under the bus for his own designs, for his own interests, as far as locally, and it doesn't seem to have mattered to him in this incident, as far as this Pahalgam is concerned. The way it was put forward, the propaganda, the way it was hastily cooked, then it's so the fact that it exposes all those loopholes now, and the world is asking questions. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you for your very valuable time. Saima, even otherwise, when we look at the situation at this time, regardless of how Pakistan deals with this, and we are ready and to respond to any kind of aggression at all times that comes from the Indian side. Don't you think there's a need for introspection within India? That this is an India which has consistently fallen under Modi. It has become unsafe for minorities. It has now become, a state that perpetrates terrorism. Do you think that people within India are also asking these questions? Those that are thinking minds within India?
Yes, Mahrukh, after this incident, we have been quite observant of such kind of sentiments which are coming from not only from the public inside from India, but also from the political parties of India. We can see, I was just giving an opinion about today's situation between India and Pakistan, that what is the narrative, what has actually happened on ground if we do a comparative analysis between Pakistan and India. That is that in Indian part, you can see that under Modi's government, the political parties, they are not with the Modi government anymore. The civil society, civil authorities, even their army, they are quite indifference with the Modi policies. While on the other hand, if you say after this, if you see after this incident of Pulwama and this attack, so we can see that Pakistani authorities, Pakistani, all the political parties, they are at the same page. The nation is all on the same page. The security forces are all on the same page, and they are quite active and vibrantly taking the media into the confidence that, see, these are the things which are quite possible for Pakistani authorities and what are the things which are not possible. On the other hand, I would like to say that Iranian foreign minister, as he is coming, he is also very much into the mediation, as the whole world is looking into the matter now. After visit of Pakistan, he is expected to go to Delhi. So I think diffusion of the situation is now need of the time, and whatever has happened from last 1.5 week, things needs to be now summed up at some point.
Fair enough. Abid sir, do you think that there is also now that India has seen, they don't prove, they can't corroborate the assertions they've made as far as Pahalgam is concerned, they will realize that perhaps they need to step back, and that of course when Pakistan is ready with the battle hardened army, with the state, like Saima said, with all stakeholders on one page, with the public sentiment being how it is, they need to take a step back at this time.
And especially the way 3-4 days back, when the Indian Air Force planes that has been projected as the most state-of-the-art, sort of plane, Rafale, that was also interjected, and that was also forced to, get down in the Indian territory. That incident shows that how Pakistan is prepared. Pakistan Air Force is very much vigilant. Pakistan Armed Forces are very much vigilant. They have developed their capacity over the years to obviously our defense sort of strategy is being primarily developed while keeping India into consideration, and this is known by Indian, and this again I would say that it's not a joke that two nuclear powers with having such big armies, they would come directly head on in a conflict. The world should take notice, and I think so, and I pray for that the world would take notice and this escalation of India. But on the other hand, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because the RSS having a very long history of extremism, he is actually doing all these actions, perhaps the major chunk of these actions for his internal consumption. But I would suggest, I would think that both the countries are spending hefty amounts on the defense budget, and the world in which we are living, people are getting developed. The heaviest number of poverty is dwelling. The poor people living below the poverty line are dwelling in this part of the world, and these amounts should be in India. People are still the slums in the capital of India, having miles and miles long distance. They should look into those sort of things, and the people should given an opportunity to live an honorable life in this place.
Instead of putting up a cooked up incident and then trying to stand behind it, which is what essentially is happening.
And the media, the hysteria created by the Indian media, the way they are banning the channels and the YouTube accounts and the X accounts of Pakistani leaders. This is the media of the so-called biggest democracy of the world.
The kind of petty, this kind of pettiness is what we've seen. I think the word for it is pettiness. But regardless, the kind of India that is projected into the world, where the slums, the poverty that is there, eye-baffling, is perhaps something that India needs to focus on. They criticize Pakistan for our economics, but I think it is time for them introspection inside India, for them to think about what kind of India is it becoming if we look back 5-10 years ago, and perhaps it's time for India to take a step back before things escalate, and Pakistan of course is capable and ready to respond. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll be taking a short break, after which we'll come back and talk more about the situation as far as Pahalgam is concerned, and what we expect from the world now. Please stay with us.